want to turn it over to Corey. He's going to show a video here in a moment. And let's just get ready.
Ow! Hey, what are you doing?
love, Dad?
I love Lauren. She's my favorite daughter-in-law.
There we go. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year.
Yeah, some of her newborn onesies are getting a little too tight now.
Why is this happening?
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
Baby Moochie is only
I knew it!
on its way.
I knew it!
Ready?
What an incredible tribute. Whew. Let's just pray very quickly before I read the eulogies. Father, we just thank you for family. And Lord, we just thank you that, according to your word, Don is alive and he's received his full inheritance. And Lord, we just pray your spirit of comfort come in the room as we celebrate the life and legacy of Mr. Kammerzell in Jesus' name. Today we're gathered together to celebrate and honor the life of Donald Ray Kammerzell, a man who was loved by so many and made such an impression everywhere he went. Don was born on January 12, 1951, in Hayward, California, to Neil and Della Kammerzell. Don grew up with 6 brothers and sisters: Linda, Terry, Donna, Paula, Gilbert, and Regina. Don was a shy boy but loved his family. During Don's high school years, he loved football and FFA. He could hold his own and would defend his younger siblings and was someone you didn't think twice about getting in with. He graduated from high school and tried to enlist, but wasn't able to because of a shoulder injury he had gotten from his football days and a blind eye he had from birth. Because he couldn't enlist, he went to work. He soon met the love of his life, Barbara Grandlin, and married her 65 days later. With their love, a few belongings, and a sew and her piglets in tow, they moved to Southern Oregon, where they have spent most of their life together and where they raised 4 children: Christy, Lisa, Stephen, and Leslie. When Don passed away, he and Barbara had just celebrated their 53rd wedding anniversary. Don and Barbara have 6 grandchildren: Camry, Natalie, Christian, Cassidy, Kaya, and Titus. They also have 3 great-grandchildren: Stella, Hunter, and Harper, with a 4th and 5th great-grandchild, Bo, expected to arrive in August, to Dylan and Cassidy, and another little boy expected in December, to Christian and Aaron. Throughout his years, Don spent countless hours driving trucks, managing cattle, or just working hard at whatever he was doing. Don embodied the spirit of hard work and perseverance. His love for his family was evident as he tirelessly supported them. Don was a simple man that had a passion for his family, his country, and farming shorthorn cattle. He enjoyed family gatherings and Mexican food. He rooted for the Seahawks, liked driving Dodge pickups, and always wore Levi jeans. He loved and cherished each of his own children, but he absolutely adored and enjoyed his grandchildren and great-grandchildren. The thing that brought him the most joy in his later years was enjoying and celebrating the achievements of his grandchildren. He would be found at every event if possible, whether it be a game, fishing, tournament, graduation, steer show, etc. He would gleam with joy and be so incredibly proud and happy. He has said recently before he passed that his only regret about having to leave this world was not having enough time with his grand and great-grandchildren. He so badly wanted to see Titus and Kaya get married and have a family. Whew, they're going to make me cry. And Camry and Corey and Dylan and Cassidy start their family. He wanted to watch the great-grandchildren grow. All right, this isn't helping. And see who they would become. I'm good. Command that tear to come back in my eye in Jesus' name. With that, he did say that he wasn't afraid to die and that he had a good, long life. He was confident in his faith in Jesus, and he knew he'd be going to heaven, and that someday he would see his family again. We're so thankful that Don's legacy lives on in his family and that we can remember his genuine, humble spirit, his gentle laugh and smile, and all that he imparted into our lives, be it great or small. He was a person of great impact to so many, and the funny thing, he never even knew it. I just want to read a few Bible scriptures to you. In Hebrews chapter 12, verse 1, it says, "Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles us, and let us run the race with perseverance." Donald, Papa, Dad, friend, has entered into the joy of his Savior. And he heard, "Well done, thou good and faithful servant." And according to the scripture, there surrounds us a great cloud of witnesses. This whole passage of scripture is intriguing because there was promises that God spoke to Don, his wife, his family, that are not yet fully fulfilled. And according to the scripture, there are sons and daughters, and many of you in this room, that will actually live on the legacy of, I call him Papa, because it's Camry's Papa, and every time he'd come to church, I just call him Papa, so forgive me if that's a little too familiar. But there are dreams that he had in his heart, and now he stands in the great cloud of witnesses, and he cheers you on. I just want to encourage you. The times that I got to meet him, he wanted to talk about Jesus. He wanted to tell me about miracles. He always told me stories. I don't know how Camry's alive today. He always told me stories about her falling out of his truck and landing on her head. And I was like, I don't know what to say about that. But the guy loved his family. I want to read another verse. It's in Proverbs 13:22. And it says, a good man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And we just watched a video and the life and the legacy of a good man. He's left a legacy. Well done, Don. We know on this side of eternity, we mourn, but on that side of eternity, he's face to face with Jesus, with no sickness, no pain, no struggle at all. I want to share something with you that is completely biblical, but has been lost in much Western culture. Some of you already have had dreams with Papa in them, with Dad in them. You've already been somewhere and you've been talking and you felt the presence of him. I want you to understand something. He is alive. And the Lord Jesus can permit, for the sake of comfort, for you to interact with Papa. It's completely biblical. So I want to encourage you, when you're out gardening, when you're out going for a walk, you can say, hey, Jesus, give Papa a hug for me. I want to encourage you that the supernatural is real and he's alive. The Apostle Paul says this. He says, to die is gain. What? And to live is Christ. So I want to encourage every single one in this room. Dad, friend, grandfather had a relationship with Jesus. He loved Jesus. A part of you fulfilling your legacy is to take that same relationship, bring it into your family, your children, and do Papa proud by loving the same Lord that's loved him for so long. Amen? I would like to invite at this time this one more video that we're going to watch.
Hey, I'm Terry, Don's oldest brother. I have been thinking about him, and when I do, I think of him when he was 3 or 4 years old. He was really cute and always happy and had a smile on his face. Mom always said he was the most handsome. When we were younger, we did many things together, but we sadly drifted apart due to jobs, family, grown-up responsibilities, and the like. We fortunately did connect off and on, and even ran into him while he was on the road truck driving. We were traveling. We had lunch together, totally unplanned. It was fun, and he always laughed at my jokes. We saw them more in the past few years, and we wish we would have spent more time with him and his family throughout the years. They raised a wonderful family, which mainly fell to Barbara since he was on the road driving truck. He and Barbara's legacy will live on in their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. And what a legacy it will be, as my wife and I had the opportunity to see firsthand in the past year. In his last days, his family was there for him, surrounding with kindness, warmth, and plenty of love. I love my brother and will miss him, but I am glad knowing that he is now with Jesus and his suffering is ended. God's greatest gift is love.
To my brother Don, what can I say except to tell you that I love you and you will be missed. I enjoyed our long conversations when you were on the road and hearing stories about your life and family, along with other topics. Sometimes we would laugh so hard until we teared up. I'll always remember the times we shared when we were young of you telling jokes and teasing me, like telling me school was out for the rest of the week, and I would say no. You would say yes. We would go on like that for a while until he finally smiled. Then I knew he was teasing. I would get so upset. Then we would laugh about it later. It wasn't that funny. Sometimes he was so irritating. Until the next time he did it again. Don, you'll be in my heart forever. Until we see each other again. Love, Donna, your sister forever.
Don, I've heard so many stories about your love and care of me when I was little. How you would hold me in your arms until they fell asleep and refused to put me down for fear of waking me. I enjoyed our time spent together in Oregon, that crazy hunting trip, and going on the road with you in the truck. I missed you when I moved from Oregon. It warms my heart to know how similar we are, and I'm so happy about the life you lived and the wonderful legacy you've created with Barbara and all of your children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. You will forever be missed, Don, and I will see you again, my brother. Your baby sister, Regina.
Hello, everyone. This is Christy, Don's oldest daughter. I want to thank you all for being here today as we celebrate the life of one of my most favorite people in the whole world, my dad. Thank you all for all of your love, support, friendship, and prayers as we've navigated the past few years of this journey. I'd like to take this opportunity to reflect a bit about my dad with you. Since I was a little girl, my dad was always someone I was proud of. He drove a really big truck, as a little person. I always thought that truck was huge, and I always thought, that he worked really hard. My mom said I used to call him Don Dairy Fresh when I was little because he worked at a local dairy where we lived in Southern California. He would come home and I would see him pulling in the driveway, I guess, and I would start yelling with excitement that Don Dairy Fresh was home. Over the years, as we were kids, he would take each of us on the road with him in his semi-truck, individually sometimes and together at times. And particularly, we're stopping at truck stops, getting candy and soda, and then listening to music as we fell asleep to the bouncing rhythm of the truck as he continued to drive for endless hours. That hardworking man never stopped driving. He drove and worked pretty much every single day of his life until his body wouldn't let him anymore. I believed he planned on doing just that until his last breath. He never planned for retirement. I just think he planned on working his whole life. He never really planned on a quiet life, although he did want a Springdale travel trailer. He was very particular about a Springdale. That's what he wanted. And he thought he would go camping once in a while, which, was a goal of his. Other than that, my dad just worked his whole life very hard. Even in his last days, as I was caring for him, he was still dreaming that he was driving. He would be shifting gears in his sleep. He'd wake up dreaming, thinking he was, needing to be somewhere, having a load of something delivered by morning. He was just really the hardest working man I have ever known and probably will ever know. He was also the bravest man I know. He didn't fear anything. He was so strong. He was extremely tough. He was simple yet complex. He was extremely smart. But unless you really spent a lot of time with him, you would never have the opportunity to know that about him. He was extremely fast with numbers. He could count a trailer full of hay accurately in seconds. I was always amazed at that. I just couldn't believe he could do that so quickly. But, he was always content with little. He had very few earthly possessions, but what he did have, he worked very hard for, and it did mean a lot to him. And you darn well better ask before you use it. He always paid his bills, and he paid them on time and in person, if possible, with a check or with cash. He loved to walk his bills in and pay them. He hated this new world of debit cards and cell phones, and he'd get very frustrated with all of that. He was very fair and honest. He had a lot of wisdom, Most people didn't know that, but he was very wise. He knew a lot about what was going on in this world and politics and different things, but he never boasted. You would never know that. He very rarely would state his opinion unless he was asked. He never had a bad thing to say about anyone. He was always very quiet and just listened. And if he didn't agree with me or with someone else, he had this way of saying, in a tone which meant, okay, I heard you, but I'm still going to do it my way. He could be stubborn as a mule, which is why he was able to defy so many odds in his life. I'm pretty sure of that. That stubbornness got him through a lot. He had a very simple faith, and he believed in Jesus. He never was one to preach about his beliefs, but he stood solid in his foundation of his faith. He was loved by so many because he was kind, simple, and genuine. He had a father's heart for all. I loved how he loved my children and my grandchildren. I loved his laugh, his sense of humor. I loved the care and time he put into his cooking. He made delicious food. His homemade ice cream was to die for. He had so many talents that many people besides his family didn't get to see. As most of you know, he loved raising shorthorn cattle. They're a very gentle, beautiful breed of cattle. They weren't really popular around here until recently. They're becoming more and more popular, which I can't help but think maybe he had a little bit to do with. I'm very fortunate that I got to share that love with my dad. He taught me so much about cattle, about him, and about myself, all the years that we spent doing cattle together. We had some of the best times together. We also had some very challenging times together. But those times brought us together and created an inseparable bond that I will cherish beyond words. Who knew that his little girl, the one who would pass out in the heat, the only one of his children who did not get his beautiful dark skin, and the one that was never very physically strong, would end up being the one by his side working cows and absolutely loving it. We have so many amazing friends because of him. His interest in cattle and his decision to purchase his little farm forever changed the course of my family and opened up our world to so many lifelong friendships. And with that, I would like to thank all of my friends and family on behalf of myself and my dad for all of your help the last few years when he was struggling. And you came to our rescue. Many of you helped so many times to do the things he couldn't do. You were there for us in so many different ways, and you will never know how much that meant to both of us. We are and we were forever grateful, and he would want you to be reminded of that today. I'm also so thankful for my dad and all that he was and still is to me. I am so strong, and I have done things I have never imagined I could do because of him. I realize now more than ever, I am so much like him. He lives on in the better parts of me. He was truly my best friend, and I love him so much. He continues on in my life when I look at my family, my children, and their children. He was so proud of them. He loved us all so much. He loved his family. We are all here because of him. I have never stopped being proud of my dad. I just grew prouder as time went on. He was that same man I was proud of the moment he took his final breath. When his body was failing him and he was in pain and suffering, he never complained once. He was so strong and was so sweet and gentle. He fought a valiant fight to the finish line, and he earned his freedom from all that had held him captive on this earth, even though I miss him more every day, and I feel lost without him. I rejoice that I will see him again, and I know on those days when I'm tired and I feel like I can't go on, or when I'm missing him and I think I will never be okay again, I just remember who my dad is. And I say to myself, Christy, you are the daughter of Don Kammerzell. You can do anything you set your mind to. Now get up, get going, just like he would. Thank you, Dad. I will always love you.
I'm Lisa, Don's second born. I just wanted to share a few of the things about my dad I am thankful for and a few of my fondest memories. My dad worked hard all of his life. He was absent for much of our childhood because of his line of work, but I always knew he was present and still cared for and loved us so much. I knew he still wanted to be with us when he was home. There was a lot of football games and Dukes of Hazzard on TV, trips to 7-Eleven for big gulps, donuts, and wax teeth, only when Mom wasn't around. He was always a bit of a prankster. He would randomly switch our milk with buttermilk just to see our reaction. He would harden his stomach and bonk our heads on it. I will miss his goofy wit and his humor. He took us on several trips to the snow, camping and trucking. I can't believe he would even set up his old blue Ford pickup with the camper shell on it in the driveway and let us camp in the back overnight. I'll always remember how strong he was, his Levi 501s, his cute style, how clean he was. He always smelled so good, clean and fresh. He ruined all of us kids because now we're all clean freaks. He always had a protective way for all of us kids. When I lived in Portland, I would come down and visit. When it would be time to go home, he would hug me goodbye and always slip me a $100 bill in my hand. I would cry on the way home because that generosity meant so much to me. I know my dad always worked so hard and didn't have a lot to spare, but I know he cared about me. I will always remember and appreciate the way he would say, "Be careful," every time I was walking out the door. It was so sweet to see the way that he loved my mom for decades. It was a love that wasn't always easy and endured hardships, but it stood the test of time and was a testament to his family and his commitment and love for her and for his children. I am thankful to him for that. I will always miss you, Dad. I love you so much.
Dad, you are so handsome and I love your blue eyes. Being your littlest girl was not always easy, but I choose to remember all the good things about you because I know I wasn't your easiest little girl either. We all grow up, and I'm pretty sure all parents do it the same time their kids do. And life does make you softer and sweeter just as it did for you, Dad. You're a true example of strong, hardworking, and you innocently loved all those around you no matter what offenses came your way. You were a loner by nature, but I think those only close to you knew that, because wherever you went, you were Mr. Social and people were drawn to you. I watched you become less private and share your story as it got closer to your last days, but not for any kind of empathy. It was humble and complete surrender. You were sick with a lot of challenges and you never complained. You are a true warrior. And as you once said, Iron Man needs rest. You would rest and you would keep fighting. You were truly relentless until I watched you take your last breath. You made me want to be even stronger. You made me even humble watching you, so sick for so many years. Okay, some of it you were just stubborn, because that you are. Most of us call you Papa, and some of us say Dad. You are both. I loved it when you referred to my mom. It was always your mother. I watched you as you became tender towards her in the last few years. It took you many years for you to look at her the way I admired, and it did happen. You did adore and love her. I knew you always did. However, the last few years, I know you realized it yourself, and how much. I'm so grateful to have my parents married for 53 years. It was hard, and you both did it. You met me off Interstate 5 countless times, and you took the time to answer all my questions about you and your life, what you were going through each and every time we sat together for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Fortunately, I don't have one question unanswered. You were very vulnerable to me, and I will never forget our times together. Thank you for being the first man to show my son unconditional love when he needed it the most. All your truck driving with him and letting him sleep in the cab. You'd bring him to me with wild hair, donuts, and whatever else he wanted. You loved how he was at peace sleeping in your truck. I also went trucking with you a lot, but somehow my memories of Titus I prefer to remember. I say that with love and laughter because he didn't get to experience the super tough, strict dad. He got Papa, and I love that more than anything. Thank you for always saving coins all year with Mom to contribute to his Bible camps every summer. Thank you for contributing to private lessons when you knew I struggled to do so when we first encouraged him to play. And I won't forget you were there and always were his number one fan. You were so admirable of his work ethic. You loved watching him work. He was fast, strong, and incredible, and you always told me that. You were not only his Papa, you were the man in his life, the man he needed, and I needed for him. I am sorry you didn't get to see him get married one day as you hoped for. You always told me it was one of the things you were fighting and holding on for. As he told you, he will make sure his family and his future kids will know exactly who you were. With that, Thank you for always holding my hand, no matter what age, my hand and Titus's hand. You didn't care if I was in my 30s, you would still reach out. You didn't care if it was in a public place, the mall, a restaurant, the car, the couch. I have so many precious pictures of your hands, and also that tight grip on your shoulder to those you loved, your strong, hardworking hands. You gave a slight shoulder rub that could make anyone realize your strength without knowing it would mean so much in our memories of you. I wanted a horse my whole young life, but I was scared and told you I wanted a donkey. In your journey to farming, shortly after that, when you bought your 4 Shorthorns, you bought me a horse, Mo. She was old, but she was mine, and you thought of me. Got me a saddle and let me ride whenever I wanted. I think you thought it would get me into the farm life. It did for a little bit, but then you got me the worst steer you could ever even imagine. 1 year in FFA and I was done. And you were okay with that. You never judged me. You knew I tried. I probably deserved that crazy steer. Go figure. But we sold it to a private buyer, and you stood by me until the end. With all the little memories I have, very little as your youngest, a lot do stand out that weren't always fun, because let's admit, you hated the lights on, talking out of our screen windows to friends, and not eating everything on our plate. But of the good ones, one stands out, and that was if Mom was gone, which was almost never, but clearly it did happen. You would make us strawberry waffles with a square boxed ice cream. You would cut a perfect square, top our waffle with it, then strawberries and whipped cream. It was so good. You'd get us all our very own Big Gulps as well. Your parenting wasn't perfect, as no one's is. You did what you knew, you did you. You worked hard, you provided, and you loved us. I don't regret one pedicure over the last few years I got to give you. It was my honor. I was also so blessed to rub your feet during chemo and just talk. I'm glad I was able to serve you in some sort of way. Thank you for all your phone calls. If I was sick or struggling in any way, you would always reach out. Just as of May 3rd, you said, "Keep your head up, dear." I will always miss you. I am so happy to see this outpouring of love for you. You're very loved.
Hello everyone, Camry here, and I'd like to introduce you to my papa. He loved a giant jug of soda pop. He loved Mexican food, chilriones, as he would say. He always rooted for the Seahawks. He loved pistachios. He loved going to the movies and eating popcorn, 2 large bucketfuls. He loved action movies. He loved to be stubborn. He was very particular about his things and would ask, "Did you touch my stuff? I'm not mad. I just want to know." He loved the Eagles, the ZZ Top, Oak Ridge Brothers. He knew mile marker locations and would ask, "What mile marker are you at?" instead of city. He was a hard worker, didn't sleep much, laughed at his own funnies, loved talking on the phone while he was driving his truck. He had a love-hate relationship with farming. He loved his shorthorn cows and his hay hooks. He would get people's names wrong all the time and say funny words like Wi-Fi for Wi-Fi and orange for orange. But my papa established in me a lot to what the person I am today. My faith, my love of cattle, my love of organization, my love for family, all of these were because of him. For my earliest of memories was Papa on the floor, playing with me and always laughing. He would throw me in the air, chase me, tickle me. Papa was gone a lot as he was a truck driver, but whenever he was home, it felt like home, mostly because we were able to get Dairy Queen or have delicious air-fried popcorn. I have so many memories with Papa as we got to live with him for most of my childhood. There is no one besides my mother that I would be more afraid of, yet love to pieces. I was his first grandchild and had the honor of knowing him so well, not only as my papa, but as a father. He was my biggest cheerleader. I knew I could do anything if he said I could. As a child, he was always taking me to the cows to feed them and to drive the truck and, of course, pick blackberries. But as soon as I was a 4-H age, my papa gave me my first steer, Bullwinkle. He was a beautiful red shorthorn steer and the beginning of my love for shorthorns. Papa showed me his FFA jacket, his show stick, his show halter, and I knew that this was my papa's thing and I had to get in on it. Papa went to every 4-H meeting after working a night shift most of the time. He helped me halter break, learn how to haul hay, and of course how to tie a hay knot and a trucker knot. There's definitely a difference. I had so many courses on how the hay should be stacked and how to throw the ropes correctly and tie it down right. No sooner than a few hay seasons in, I could back up the hay trailer, hook it up, drive it, and learn how to stack it to Papa's standards. Not only did I learn the mechanics, but the strength I gained helped a lot. I was only able to stack one level at a time, but soon enough I got to 5 high, and I earned the name, "You Big Brute." Some would take that offensive, but to me, it made me feel like I could do anything if I put my mind to it, because Papa called me his Big Brute. Papa and I went to many shows, won many ribbons, and through my sister we even won a belt buckle. Papa loved fair season and would help us in any way he could. I was lucky enough to be at his house 2 times a day from 5th grade until I graduated. Papa taught me the simplicity of life. I don't think he ever had a truck that would run right. I had to learn how to pop it or pump the gas or keep the hood open as he drove so it wouldn't overheat. Papa would always tell me his biggest dream of how he would have a beautiful ranch full of shorthorns that would compete on national level. I was lucky enough to help build fences, clean up rocks, and of course all the farm chores. Papa was not a quitter, and he instilled that with me even with all my health battles. He always assured me that no matter what I face, I could beat it. He never wanted me to go through all I did, but he knew with Jesus and my strength, I would fight and I would win. I'm thankful for my many failed truck, overheating hauling hay, or cows because it gave me time with my papa. He would tell me stories, tell me his opinions, and anything that was on his mind. After a while of running cows together, Papa and I would often not see eye to eye, but at the end of the day, we still loved each other like crazy. I always know how proud Papa was of me and how much he loved me because he always told me. After we found out Papa had cancer, I started really listening to his stories, his regrets, and honestly, what the most important life thing he ever went through was having 17 calves on the ground. But in all seriousness, he told me to live for the Lord in everything I do, and he will take care of me. He assured me that the desires of my heart to be a mom will happen, and to be open to whatever that would look like. And ultimately never stop being me. Always laugh as it's contagious and love like there's no tomorrow. I would describe Papa as a stubborn, particular, loving, simple man. He loved his family and would do anything for them. I was grateful to see him love his great-grandchildren and love just watching them. I asked Papa to walk me down the aisle at my wedding, and right before he did, he told me he didn't know if he could. It would mean I'm grown and no longer a little girl, but a beautiful woman. But he knew that the man he was walking me down the aisle was the perfect man for me and the one God intended for me. Just a few weeks before Papa passed, he told me that he was so thankful that I waited for Corey. That he feels good knowing that Corey is the one left with me and for me. That he was the best decision besides Jesus. And that at the end of the day, whether we live or die, Jesus is our only way. The day Papa fell was the day I got to record a song I wrote. I went in there to sing for Papa and for all who would need to know that in the end of this life, Jesus is our only hope. Whether we live or die, he is the only way. I was able to play the song for Papa, and he told me not just to make it the one song, but to always sing and keep going. The last words I was able to tell Papa is, Papa, I was able to record the song and it went great. I hope you know just how much I love you. He said, I hope you know just how much I love you. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing to you the one and only Kammerzell. So today I'm telling you about the man who would do anything for me, who prayed for me, and always pushed me to go bigger than my dreams. To the man who fought so hard for so long, that was one of the hardest workers, who loved his family so well. He would encourage you to never give up. I will miss you forever, Papa, but I know you will always be with me. I'm so grateful for heaven because this is just to see you later. Whenever I think of you, I'll look up and say, what's up?
Well, at this time, I'd like to introduce Corey Froenick.
Well, that's brutal for me to come after. If you're wondering, I am that Corey that my wife was talking about. Well, probably gonna cry, but good time to do it. It's not the first time I've cried giving a speech, so. Yes, I have the privilege of being able to talk as an adopted grandson for Don. First time I met him, I asked him, what do you want to be called? Because everybody called him Papa. He said Don. So from that point forward, he was never Papa to me. He was always Don. And I think everybody got a kick out of it because everybody's like, hey, Papa. And I'm just, hey, Don. Hey, Corey. So, yeah. And the thing was, like, we were able to bond. We had this bonding experience at Justin and Katie Daniels' wedding, and it was over carrot cake. We had this long conversation where we talked for 45 minutes on a picnic table just about carrot cake. And from that point forward, at every family event, it was mandated that we had carrot cake. And if we didn't have it, we would drive to Fred Meyer, Albertsons, Walmart, and then eventually we figured out that Trader Joe's has the best carrot cake. So, has some bonding experience. Before I really knew what Don did with bucking hay, which I'm a city boy, never bucked hay in my life, and I did it with my now wife, Camry, and I preferred to always be on the stack. Sometimes Joe would always get the stack, and I was always envious of it. But then when I was on it, I always had this, it was a very tight stack, and I didn't realize that that's what Papa always loved, or Don. And they gave me the nickname of Papa Junior. But to me, it made sense. Like, if you want to go high, you got to have it tight. I learned that the times that I bucked hay with Don, I learned the power of Coors Light. Just offering a case or two of Coors Light, you could get a good hand to help you. So I don't know those people, but they were good at what they did. And just, here, have as much beer as you want. Yeah. To ask for Camry's hand in marriage, she wanted me to go and ask Don, one of the three. So Delbert, her stepdad, real dad, and Don. And I'm happy he said yes. He's married into a great family. And I can't remember exactly what I said at your guys' 50th, but I definitely expressed how grateful I was that you guys accepted me, and you guys were a perfect family that I prayed for to be in. Things I'm gonna miss. I'm gonna miss these long conversations, like the carrot cake, or randomly talking about restaurants or whatever their opinions are, or music or whatever on these long drives. I secretly, towards the end of his life, I recorded a conversation, one of those long conversations where he was talking about where he and Nana lived in Mill City on a ranch, and they loved it. And it was a very, very small studio house. It was smaller than your house, Lisa. And they loved it. And that was the place that out of all the places they've lived, that was the place that they loved the most. And yeah. And then the last thing I'm gonna miss is the long hugs. He always loved the hugs I gave him, and it was just long and tight, and I couldn't do that towards the end of his life because he was in a lot of pain, but I really loved him deeply, and I'm just happy that I was his adopted grandson. I loved him.
Comes with her own microphone, so.
Test. Okay, it works. For those of you who may not know me, I am Natalie, Dawn's granddaughter, daughter of Christy. Dawn was Papa to me, and I dare not call him anything else. I remember one time I kept yelling for him, Papa, Papa, Papa. I finally just yelled, Dawn! Man, did he turn around. He walked up and said, don't you ever call me by my first name. It's Papa or Grandpa to you. Hopefully he will be okay with me saying his name today, but from here on, it's Papa. Papa could be stern at times, but man, did he know how to love. He was typically a very quiet man, but once he started talking, he would go on, and occasionally keep going on and on. When passionate about a conversation, he would get quite repetitive and make sure he gets his point across. I will never forget him taking to get my permit and letting me know his feelings on the seatbelt law and being an organ donor. Papa was the best person to call when you were driving. I assume all those years of trucking made him the best talking buddy. Truck rides with him were always fun too, whether it was in a semi-truck or the Dodge. You just had to yell in the Dodge. It was so loud and Papa's hearing wasn't the best. Once he got the new radio in the Dodge, then we got to listen to some of Papa's favorite tunes. I loved the way he would always belt out the songs. He was very silly. Most of our sleepovers were just with Nana since Papa was on the road a lot, but when Papa was home, he always tried to make it special, whether it was making popcorn, putting on a movie, or just hanging out with us. There are so many memories that I will cherish. The biggest part was doing 4-H with Papa. I am so grateful for his hard work and giving us the chance to do 4-H with him. The knowledge, the memories, and the life experiences it taught me, I owe all to him and Mom. It wasn't about the competition for me. I did it for the relationships and fun. Of course, it wasn't always fun in games. Trying to herd cattle, getting drugged, kicked, or stepped on, and being exhausted from bucking hay, Papa always knew how to crack some jokes to make it more enjoyable. One day, we were vaccinating cows, and Papa came out in a bright white shirt. Of course, Papa got splattered with cow poo, and he goes, "Oh, this is a new shirt." He tried to conceal his smile, but I go, "Well, who wears white while vaccinating cows?" He smiled real big and chuckled. Another thing he loved to do was say, "Huh?" multiple times. Even though he heard you, he thought it was funny and sometimes just wanted to see how many times you'd repeat yourself. He was a funny man even when he wasn't trying. I loved all the phrases or words he would say wrong, but get close enough that you knew what he meant. I especially loved the way he would say orange. I would try to get him to make him say it any chance I got. I was so lucky to have him at my graduation, wedding, and see him with my girls. He loved his family so much. He welcomed all the in-laws with open arms and loved them like his own. He was always excited to spend time with family. He got even more excited when the great-grandkids started arriving. He cherished every visit or FaceTime with them. He loved every photo or video of them. Sometimes he would call during nap, but would still talk with me and make me feel special and loved too. We started doing Williams Wednesdays back in October. Even if he wasn't feeling well, he still wanted to be there and enjoy our company. I'm so grateful for that time and will cherish it. I will try to keep the tradition alive with Nana. I'm sad he won't be here to watch all his great-grandkids into this world and grow, but I know he loves them all. We will do our best to share stories with them so they too can know Papa. So to end this speech, I just want to say thank you, Papa, for working so hard, the farm, the love you gave, the memories, and all the joy you brought to our lives. I miss you so much and so sad we can't continue to make memories together as a family. But I hope you have a TV up in heaven that plays episodes of all our lives so you don't miss a beat. I love you so much and see you on tonight's episode.
So our last speakers, Don's son, Steve. This one will work.
Sorry, we had a little discussion about the microphone. Didn't mean to throw that out there, but I'm actually having to stall for my sister Lisa. She asked me to wait to start till she gets back from the bathroom. Do you know what I had to put up with 3 sisters growing up? This kind of stuff right here. You know how many times I had to wait to go to the bathroom for them? Because they were in the bathroom. It was incredible. It was absolutely incredible. Well, I will wait to start, but in the meantime, I just want to introduce myself. I'm Steve Kammerzell. I'm Don's only son. I tried to greet everybody as you came through the door. I maybe missed some, but I tried to. My dad always taught me how to shake somebody's hand. That's one thing I think is very important for a father when you ever become a father, is to look another man or a woman in the eyes and shake their hand. And you don't have to crush them, but you have to let them know you're in charge. My dad made sure that when I shook a hand, it wasn't this, as he would say, lollygag-ass stuff. So I've always had a good handshake thanks to my dad. And I do believe I pass it on to my kids. Lisa's back. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Anybody time that? Well, if you guys look behind me right now, we got some green lights and some blue lights up there in memory of Seattle Seahawks for my dad. Camry put these on the stage for him. One of the things I do want to know, though, Lisa, is I didn't get a chance to talk to my siblings, but why did Dad give you $100 and never us? Mom, you owe us quite a few $100 bills. Hopefully Dad left you with a few of those. Yeah. Also, in watching the video, I was actually pretty shocked. Some of the pictures I had forgotten about, but damn, my dad was a good-looking dude. I have no idea why he became a truck driver. He should have been like the James Bond or something. I mean, some of those pictures, was he not handsome? I mean, my goodness. Very, very handsome. Well, on behalf of my mom, Barbara, my three sisters, Christy, Lisa, Leslie, and our spouses, the kids, we'd like to say thank you for making the time to come here today. For some of you, it means traveling and expenses, and it takes a lot to do this. And so we want to say thank you for coming. I want to say thank you for coming and being a part of this today. I also want to say thank you to everybody, Ivan in the church, and people putting together things, and the countless hours that Camry put into the videos, and Corey running the sound. I mean, it just takes a lot, right, to make this kind of stuff happen. It just doesn't happen. So thank you so much from our family to you. Thank you so much. Well, before I start, I want to let you guys know I wrote this down today because when I began to prepare for what I was going to say about my dad, I didn't realize how difficult it was going to be. I've never spoken before about a parent passing. So I have spoken many times in front of people. Getting in front of people with a microphone is not necessarily something that's very difficult for me. But in this case, it's very difficult. So forgive me that I'm not going to freelance. I'm going to actually stick to a script because if I don't, I probably won't get through it. So anyways, thanks again. I'm going to have some water because I just need it. Papa would always have his big gulp cup. Why can't I have a Yeti? So anyways, as I said, I'm going to stick to my script, but I got to put my glasses on first because I'm getting old. Love you, Mom. You look very beautiful today, by the way. As I've said, I've spoken in front of many people many times, but never losing a parent. Today was my way. Today, we may share the same emotions of losing a loved one, or for some, this may be the first loss you've ever of a loved one. Even though this time is difficult, my hope is that today we can all find joy in the celebration of the life of my dad. As I know, he would want us all not to be sad. One of the things my dad used to always say to me as a kid to toughen me up when I started to cry was, stop crying or else I'll give you something to cry about. So today, by the way, when I look at you, you're very blurry, but that's because these are readers. He would say, toughen up or else I'll give you something to cry about. So today, if I begin to cry, because I was not on a video that got edited, if you guys picked up on some of that, there was some editing going on there. So if I begin to cry, I need your help to toughen me up and say, I'll give you something to cry about, to stop crying. I'd like to take you on a journey with me to share in the life of my dad through my eyes in this short time we have here today. To be honest, my childhood was different than some. Our childhood as kids was different than some. In that, we grew up with two loving parents, but at times it felt like we only had our mom. All my childhood, I haven't even started talking about my dad. My dad was a long-haul truck driver. He traveled up and down the I-5 corridor, and on an average would be home only 5 days or so. When he was home, it would sometimes only be hours or at most a day or two before he would leave again. As a young boy, it felt like forever, when he was away at work trucking. Of course, he was my hero. Toughen up, that's right, see? Somebody listened. I remember my mom telling me, of course, we always talked to my dad on the phone, but I remember my mom telling me when my dad was about to come home, and we would wait at the door, and I'd watch for him in his big old truck to make the turn, and where he parked was out in front of our trailer park, and I couldn't wait just to run out and to greet him. And as a dad, I know what it's like to get home from a long day of work and just grab your stuff out of your truck, walk in the door, and barely get a breath before being greeted by your kids who missed you. And for me, that was just a coffee cup, a notepad, nowadays an iPad. But my dad would have to get his briefcase with his logs, his daily logs, his suitcase that he had to pack for his clothes, his dirty clothes for my mom to do his laundry. And he did all that, but he always was able to jump out of that truck and greet me with a giant hug. And it felt so good. Looking back, I realized how tired he must have been, but he never showed it. Dang, this is hard. He was always eager to love us. As a boy, I was able to go trucking with my dad quite often on summer breaks. Sometimes I get to bring a friend. Steve Sadler, who's here with us today, was one of them. On those trips, we'd often get bored. It was very boring at times. And listen to the video, listen to Chrissy talk about how the truck would rock you to sleep. It's so true. But my dad would come up with travel games like finding different letters in the alphabet. So on your way home, maybe you guys can find some letters if you're traveling on signs or license plates and play a little game that my dad would do with us, and we'd spell a word out. And how you had to do that is find all the letters and spell out a word. Find a word first. We'd count overpasses. That's a really fun one, too. I mean, let me tell you, when you're 10 years old sitting there going, from here to L.A., guess how many overpasses there are to get there before you get off to get our load. Really fun games. But it did help kill some time. He also would sing at the top of his lungs. One of his favorites was Tina Turner. What's Love Got to Do with It? He absolutely loved that song. I'm not drinking water to sing for you. However, he did love the Oak Ridge Boys and Elvira. Bop, mow, mow. My heart's on fire, Elvira. My dad didn't have a good voice, and I did not hear a good voice either. As I got older, sports took the place of those long road trips with my dad. During that time, my dad worked even harder. He would drive sometimes through the night to watch whatever sport activity I was in. The other day, my mom and I were just talking about how he was so proud of me when I was in youth wrestling. I made state, and I wasn't very good at wrestling, to be honest with you, but I really, really worked hard because I wanted to impress and make my dad happy. He was very good at wrestling when he was a young man, and that's why I picked up wrestling, which later on I picked up basketball and played basketball. However, I made state, and my mom reminded me how proud he was of me just the other day when we were talking, and he drove all night through the night just to make it home to watch me at state. Unfortunately, I lost in the first round. But he was so proud. I remember he gave me a special headgear that I've wanted forever and to protect me from getting cauliflower ears, so I'm thankful for that. Speaking of work, my dad was the hardest worker I've ever seen. He's instilled the same work ethic in myself and my sisters, and even his grandchildren, and watching them work. They all work so hard. Honestly, he was the hardest work I've ever seen. It was impressive. My dad was never one to invest his money into things that would gain him riches here on earth, but he always provided for our family. Times were often tough, but he always found ways to provide. Up until a few years ago, he would just say, when times are tough, I'll just pick up another load or another shift. Knowing that he couldn't do it, he said, I'm going to do it. I'll find a way. I'll provide. If we were struggling, he would want to go work more, just to even help us as adults. He really thought he was going to work all the way up until his last hour, as Chris even said. I wrote down that he had 3 passions. Work, that's all I really ever knew of my dad, of one of them. Shorthorn cattle and football. He was a simple man, but yet so complex, as you guys have heard a few other people say that. If you really want to spend time with him, you need to go into his world, because he was not one to really commit to very much, because he had those three passions, and that's about all the time he had. So with work, I had the privilege to work alongside of him in my construction company. When he retired from trucking, he worked for us. It was an amazing time to see him outside of trucking and really interact with customers and clients. Every supply house that he visited loved him. I would get calls from suppliers, or they would stop me when I would go into the supply house and ask, "Where's Papa Don?" We sure do love him. He is such a great guy. It was amazing. One time I actually, in a house that we had sold to some people, I was like, "Where's Papa?" I asked Christian, "Where's Papa?" "I don't know, I think he's over here at so-and-so's house." So I said, "All right." So I go over to the house, and I said, "Is my dad here?" And they said, "Yeah." And "Yeah, your dad's here." I said, "Where's he at?" He goes, "Well, he's sore. We're just talking to him about, his cancer and stuff, and he's in the recliner over here. It's a massage chair." I literally go in the room, and he's like just sleeping. Just getting massage. I didn't wake him up. I let him finish the session. But that's just how much people loved him. They just let him into their house. I mean, these people literally just bought the house, and they loved him, not me. So, very impressive. All the guys that worked for us, my mom and I were talking about this too, all the young men, and construction is definitely a young man's sport, not an old man's sport. They just loved and respected him without him having to really ever do anything. And I think it was just because his simple way of always being on time, always showing up, doing what he said, delivering the material when it was needed to be delivered. And the young men just looked up to him. And I've received so many messages and texts from former employees that are moved or done different things with their life, and just loved him. We were fortunate enough that he was able to work with his three grandsons, Christian, Kaya, and Titus, all at the same time. It was pretty impressive. It was pretty fun. It was very special to all work together. I think the biggest challenge for my dad was getting him to stop using his flip phone and move over to a smartphone. He did not want to do that. For the longest time, he carried two phones around. The best thing ever was actually FaceTiming him when he was at Lowe's. I said, "Dad, just FaceTime me so I can tell you what product to get." So he's there in the aisle. And I mean, if I would have been in the aisle, I would have cracked up. It would have been awesome. But he's literally taking the phone. I said, "Dad," all right. So I said, "Hit the button when I call you." So he hits the button. I said, "All right, you see me?" "Oh, yeah. Hey, how you doing?" Of course, I took a screenshot of it. I said, "Dad, now just hit the button and it'll switch the camera over so I can see the product of what you're getting." "What? Like this?" "No, Dad, hit the button, it'll switch." Anyways, teaching him to do that was a challenge in itself. I couldn't imagine what my mom went through with him. The truth is, in my business and what I do, the impact that Papa Don had on our company will never be forgotten. He was loved by so many. Shorthorn cattle. He loved his cattle, not just any cattle. They had to be shorthorn cattle. When I was a kid, he would get magazines about them and show them to me prior to having any cattle. We lived in a trailer park, but yet he managed to lease some property, and he eventually had bought the farm. I remember driving down to Williams to purchase our first few head. I was so excited to do this with him, but soon realized this is just another long, boring trucking trip down the I-5 corridor to Williams, which is about 4 or 5 hours from here. As you guys had heard, he would talk endlessly and repetitively about things and the passions that he loved in his cattle, and how we're going to have this beautiful big herd someday. And I just got bored, and I remember that trip very well. But I do know that one thing that his grandson Christian inherited from him, and we do long distance fishing trips, is the passion of talking about the things that he loved. And I got to hear Christian also talk my ear off, and oftentimes we pass by Williams. And anyways, I'm sure Christian also has heard me say, "Hey, that's the first time I ever bought cattle with my dad, was right there at that exit." And he just looks at me and goes, "Uh-huh." But it's pretty special. We get to drive by there doing our Central California bass fishing circuit. My dad and I grew the herd that we had, and we made so many memories. I joined FFA and trying to fulfill like his passion, his love, as well as mine, and it was a blast. We had a good time. I eventually owned 15 head of cattle myself, and I sold them back to my dad as my life took me in a different direction. My oldest sister, Christy, developed a passion for the farm life, and so did her two daughters, Camry and Natalie. He was so happy to work alongside of them and watch them in 4-H. He was loved by so many, as I could see here today, in the farming and ranching community. So many of you I don't know, and again, thank you, as Christy said, that you guys stepped in and came and helped so much when he was sick. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Football was another passion of his. My dad was very passionate about the game of football. He was very good as a young man. He was a very good athlete. His favorite NFL team was the Seattle Seahawks, if you couldn't tell by the lights. He never pushed any of his love of his team, but in some way made all of his kids and grandkids follow the love of the Seahawks as well. His passion for the game was contagious. I was fortunate enough to make a live game with him and Titus, his dad. I will never forget the time that we spent in Seattle. My cousin Jackie, who's here with us also today, she was also at the game. We didn't get to connect, but she was at the game. We just talked about it last night. One of the funny things is Lori, my wife, and my mom would listen to my dad and I make phone calls to each other and talk about the game. And, before halftime, he'd be watching it from his couch, I'd be watching it from mine, and we'd call each other and talk about the game. And they'd make fun of us and say, well, why don't you call Pete Carroll and just tell him what to do? I'm really going to miss those calls with my dad. However, Christian and I, we have started the same thing. We do the same thing, and now Aaron and Lori get to hear us talk about the game. Lastly, I just want to let you know, Dylan, that he never disliked you because you were a Vikings fan. Dylan's my son-in-law, by the way. And but he definitely really loved the fact that Cass would still root for the Hawks. So on 3, I want to hear everybody say, go Hawks. 1, 2, 3, go Hawks. That wasn't everybody. I know there's a Raider fan over there and a Rams fan out here. Oh, my goodness. In conclusion, Don Kammerzell, a husband, brother, father, father-in-law, papa, great papa, Papa Don, a friend, was a simple man that never boasted about himself or put anyone down. You've also heard somebody else say that today. He didn't say much, but his body language said it all. He didn't have to say much. He said it all. You just had to look at him. Shake his hand, he'll let you know. He was kind, loving, and tough, and when needed to be, he was actually quite the badass. I remember when I was a young boy, jumping out of a truck with him, and we would go to truck stops or where we'd deliver a load, and man, he'd just fly out of that truck, just fly out of it, and everybody would say, man, why's your dad have a chip on his shoulder? He's such a badass. I don't know, man, he's a badass. Sorry, Evan. I know we're not supposed to say ass in church, but I did. He left this world with not a bunch of earthly treasures, but greater treasures that live within each and every one of us. On the back of his memorial card for my dad, there's a poem written by Linda Ellis called The Dash. Many of you have probably heard this, but I'm going to go ahead and read it, and if you have your card, you can follow along. And here's what it says. I read a man who stood to speak at the funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from the beginning to the end. He noted first came the date of the birth and spoke the following dates with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between the years. For the dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth, and now only those who love them what that little line is worth. For it matters not much what we owe, the cars, the house, the cash. What matters is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you'd like to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. To be less quick to anger and show appreciation more and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash might only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read with your life's actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you lived your dash? That really resonated with me. My sister brought that to us when we all gathered together to prepare for this, and it's so true today. I think my dad would say that he lived a pretty good dash, but I also think my dad would say there's always more to give and to do better. So today I want to encourage you all to live your best dash. to love harder, laugh more often, and take the time to stop and give a hug. It struck me when Corey said to give a hug, because that's the thing I want to miss the most. I love your hugs, Lori, but nobody can hug like my dad. Oh man, his hugs were amazing. You're supposed to say, toughen up. Come on now. I give you something to cry about. I asked some of my family what they would miss the most about Papa, and all the responses were so simple. I'm going to read just a few of them. His soft way of saying, be careful out there. One was when you'd walk in the door, how was your day, honey? I could hear him saying these things too. It's just. Others would say his laugh, his touch, his smell, and his hugs. So again, I would encourage you today to love harder, laugh more often, hug somebody. Just hug them. Because Corey's right. Papa would hug and he would just hang on to you. It was amazing. And for men, that's kind of difficult sometimes. But I do that with my son or my worker sometimes. I'll say, just come and give me a hug. And I'll just hug them and I won't let go of them. I say, how's that feel to have a man hug you? Because that's what my dad would do. Not to everybody. He wasn't a real big hugger to everybody. But he did give the best hugs. Well, please remember all the things about what you've heard today about my dad and pass them on in remembrance of him with your family or your loved ones. He was pretty impressive. He really was. He was so simple, but yet so complex. He was just so easy and simple-minded, but yet so smart. My mom asked me to say a few things in regards to, in closing here, about the three things that kind of in the last week that he was really kind of concerned about and talking about and wanted to know to be around for these answers. One was Titus and his decision to go to college. And Titus was in college, and he just got back from visiting a college, and it sounds like he's wanting to pursue that. So, Dad, he's going to pursue college, so be proud. The other thing was, and I don't want to boast, but I will. No, I was kidding. I'm different than my dad about that. He was really wanting to know. Christian and I are bass fishermen. We do tournament, and we're fishing a Central California top 75 tour that we're doing. And he always, after a bass tournament, he'd ask me to call him and give him a report of how we did, whether it be local or travel or whatever. And so every time I'd call him, and he'd answer and say, "Hey, what's up, man?" I said, "Nothing, man. What's up with you?" He'd say, "I know, man. What's up with you? You call me. You tell me." And I said, "All right, man, I'll talk to you. I'll tell you." That's how my dad and I talked all the time. I'm going to miss that. So if you guys call me and I ask you, "What's up with you, man?" just know that's why. But anyways, we did make the top 25 out of the 75 tour. So we were fishing for the championship round that you had to earn your way into. So that's an achievement that Christian, my son, and I experienced and get to do. So my dad would be very happy and proud of that. So my mom wanted me to share that. So Titus College, top 25 of our first tour, and lakes we've never fished before. And then lastly, in which we're going to close to this, is Camry had written a song. And she's actually signing, they're signing, and they're going to produce it on the radio and different things. And so it's a worship song. It's a beautiful song. She was able to perform it prior because with the signing and stuff, she had some things where she wasn't allowed to release it. And so, but she went over to his house, and just before he kind of went into a place where it wasn't so pretty anymore and he wasn't able to really be coherent, Cameron was able to worship with him. I wasn't there for that, but I heard it was a really awesome moment. So he's very proud of everybody. That's right. See, and it works. he was also so proud of his great grandkids. I mean, his grandkids having great grandkids, and I mean, he really wanted to hang on to see Bo be born, and now obviously we're expecting another one from Christian and Aaron. So in December we'll have 3 little grandsons running around, Lori and I, and he'd be so happy for that. And he wanted to see you guys get married and have your guys' kids someday too as well. But you know what? He's in a better place. So I leave you today at the end of this to listen to this song and just let it soak in. Let the words as spoken today soak in, and hopefully it was a good time and a time to remember. It's not a sad time; it's a happy time. My dad's in a happier place. He's in a better place. He's not in pain. So share it with everybody, the love and the hugs, and thank you guys again for coming today. And after the song is over, we're to sit here in moments of silence through the song. Please join us in the lobby and have some refreshments. Thanks again, everybody, for coming and making the time.